Mike and Tom, they got the mic. In the shadows they ignite. Horror tales and sci-fi vibes. Fantasy world with comic tribes. Monsters lurking in the night. Spaceships soaring out of sight. Dragons breathing fiery fright. Heroes battling for the light. It's the first, the last, the Nerdom show, where geeky legends always grow. Let's enjoy and let it flow. Diving deep and feel the glow.
ML and Tom welcome you to The First, The Last, The Nerdom, the podcast where we explore the most iconic moments in cinema. Dive deep into the stories that have shaped film history and celebrate the nerdy side of all of it. This week, we're stepping into the world of the classic noir with a real gem from 1944, Double Indemnity. Join us as we unpack the twists, turns, and dark thrills of this groundbreaking film, where betrayal, lust, and murder collide in a web of suspense. We'll discuss unforgettable characters, the sharp-tongued Phyllis, and the normally morally conflicted Walter Neff, and explore how Double Indemnity revolutionized the noir genre like no other. Whether you're a seasoned cinephile or first-time viewer, there's always something new to discover in this timeless classic. So grab your trench coat, dim the lights, and let's get into the shadowy world of Double Indemnity on this week's episode of The First, The Last, The Nerdom. How you, Tom?
Hey, great intro and a great song we introduced the podcast to.
Thank you.
If you want to hear the full song, you can check it out on our Patreon if we had one. But I'll probably try to see if I can load it up on X or something. But yeah, how was your Thanksgiving?
It was good. It was good. As you can see, I've kind of renovated here a little bit here and there, and you can kind of see we've got the thing. We're back on the rails here for this thing. No, my Thanksgiving was very quiet, very wonderful. Wasn't feeling quite 100%, but it wasn't nothing too bad. But one of those things where you move on. But I enjoy, as always, I enjoy the time of season to kind of look back and be thankful. And anyway, how about yours?
Yeah, it was good. It was good. Yeah, had a I was working as well. I had to work that Friday, so it was not a full weekend, but it was good. Ate
Right.
a little too much, like everybody does, and you know, my sisters brought the dogs over, so we had fun watching them hunt down for turkey. But yeah, no, I'm excited about talking about our movie this week, Double Indemnity. And also, for those that maybe this is a little bit different, where Mike, you said, Tom, I want to do some noir. I
Yeah.
said, fine, Mike, let's do some noir. And so that's what we're doing. So we may be pulling in a few different new people watching us. And Mike, why don't you pull up our socials and let them know a little bit more about us?
Absolutely. Yeah. Let me pull up. As Tom alluded to, we are the this is our YouTube channel where you can find us all. Also, you can see it there in the background. Maybe if I
Oh.
do my head right. Anyway, the first last nerdum. You'll always be able to find us here. This is our home base. I am working on our website, but I have to do a little bit more sleuthing, as it were, because I lost track of it and I have to go recover it. But aside from that, when I find our long lost website and I get that's something I've been promising for a while now. But we won't we'll skim over that. But I'll toss it back to you on Reddit there. The good old God bless
Yeah.
you, Tom. You're a saint to deal with these Reddit folks.
Yeah, I try to post on there and kind of promote our stuff, and some subreddits like us, some don't want us to promote, so we get the big ban on it. So yeah, we're playing tag, but we're very appreciative of those that do welcome us, and we do get quite a few views, I think, from it. So shout out to you if I posted this on Reddit and you found us. Cool. Hopefully you like us. Give us a like and subscribe. But yeah, I post there. But Also, I just kind of jump around subreddit to subreddit. We haven't found a home. Maybe in the future we might have our own subreddit if we grow big enough, and we could have a little community there. But yeah, we're also on X, formerly known as Twitter. I am in McAllister underscore T, and I go through and make sure, or try to make sure I post a video, or anytime we have a video up, I post it. And then if there's anything nerdy in the nerdosphere that I find might be interesting, I might put it there. But yeah, mostly it's a sort of a self promotion for our channel there.
Yep, absolutely, yeah. And just like you, we are starting this third year, or I think our junior year, as we go into it,
Yeah.
doing this YouTube thing. Or maybe we
Hmm.
finished our junior year. I can't. Yeah, yeah, right.
Yeah.
So we're freshman,
Yeah.
sophomore,
We're
junior. So we're ready to go into our senior year, right?
yeah.
That's right. I was gonna undervalue us.
Hopefully we'll go on to college. We won't drop out, but
Yeah,
yeah.
well, definitely we got 200 plus underneath our belt. So and then this thing is evolving as we do as we do it, and we take breaks. Yeah, pretty much every 2 or 3 months we'll take a week or two off,
Mhm.
or whenever we feel compelled to like do it because we do this thing for fun. But um, just like you, both Tom and I, what I wanted to say was we're now fully equipped to welcome you all in on the X side of the house because I think the X side is going to be a little bit bigger. I've had engagement and
Mhm.
pretty good luck with the video side. No, and when I say this, I'm not talking about like I am somebody important because I'm not. But doing the nobody thing, like finding other people to like connect with, I have found that on X, on Twitter, as well as YouTube. Primarily more on YouTube, but with that being said, I also am on X here, ML ApeIt_Ink. Anyway, also do my website on the Substack that I do. It's just my long form publication. Some silly, some fun, some heavy, mostly heavy things. If you're in the mood for that. But again, there's where we are. So yeah, so I'll jump really quickly into this movie, and I think to kind of set the scene. What exactly I ask AI here up on the screen? What exactly is film noir? And it gave me this thing, and the lighting, and that's all you should take from that thing. I don't even know how to pronounce that word, but I saw that I was like, okay,
Ariescu or
that's
something. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's like, okay, black and white. There's something going on with lighting, with light, dark, and the
Mhm.
grays. There's narrative elements, like there's thing that oftentimes there's morally ambiguous characters or situations. There's some kind of complex thing going on, and there's also kind of like it's more cynical or Nietzsche or fatalist or destiny. There's like some kind of angle there of like
Mm,
knowing that the cliff is almost there and you're mere inches from it, so to speak.
mm.
But anyway, and then I said, okay, that's cool, but explain it to me like I'm 5 years old. Which is to just basically say that it's a kind of where it's dark and there's a mystery, and it kind of goes from there. Usually there's
Yeah.
it's not like a police procedural or something like that. Usually the police to have nothing to do with it, but usually it's something happened and then or is gonna happen, and then we're either coming in forward or backward. And of course, Memento, I want to say, kind of did that cinema a unique way with the backwards kind of thing. But
Yeah.
anyway, that's a kind of a little cinema nerd thing. But I just wanted to kind of set the
Yeah.
stage. So basically, where we're at with this is we have this mystery that's going on. This is from 1944. This was an original classic noir, crime thriller
Yeah.
is another way to say it. Billy
Yeah. Yeah.
Wilder,
Yeah.
and then
My
I'll
my
hand it off to you. Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, my ingredients for a film noir is you got to get your downtrodden
Oh,
protagonist,
that's
yeah,
true.
down on his luck, for the most part, and maybe a little bit of alcoholic, maybe not, because I think most of the writers of this have experiences with the devil's liquid. But yeah, you gotta have your femme fatale, that mysterious lady that the protagonist becomes enamored with, and she's veiled in mystery. and there's usually a bit of a mystery and maybe a murder involved, and and then there's Mike said, there's a nihilistic twist to this. There's probably a way out, but our protagonists and the people involved, usually when they come to that fork in the road, they swerve the wrong way. uh
Right.
Keep thinking that their luck's going to turn, but their luck has not turned up until now. Why are they thinking it's going to change? And we're kind of along for the ride, and you're going, no, no, don't do that, don't do that, and then yeah, everything ends up at the end of the crash site. But yeah, that's sort of film noir is wonderful. There's back in the 90s, I really got into film noir, and just ate it up, and I think AMC, American Classic Movies Channel, or whatever that
Oh
was
yeah.
back in the day.
Yeah, yeah.
They had like a month, or they were going through a ton of these, and I fell in love with Veronica Lake. I won't get into that, but I had to watch every one of her movies. But yeah, I really love it, and ever since then, anytime I find maybe a neo noir that comes out that kind of inspires the old noir vibes, I love doing it. And I think they started Noir November, so we're about a week off from hitting that. We were aiming for November, but our schedule kind of got packed, and we took a week off. And so we're doing a Noir December. That's not as cool, but hey, we're trendsetters. Sorry, I rambled a little bit,
Well,
but
no, no, no.
let's bring
No,
us
I
back to
love it.
Double Indemnity here.
Well, no, I love it. I love your discussion, and I'll let it flow, a little air out a little bit. I love the way that you encapsulated it. The
Mhm.
downtrodden, the down on your luck, kind of, the vibe. There's a certain kind of vibe that goes with noirs, and I was gonna kind of, I wanted to pull this apart a little bit more, because you introduced me to giallos, and in a
Mhm.
lot of ways, if you go by the paper definition of a giallo, you could also lightly claim it under the title of a noir.
Mhm.
Sometimes you could, of
Mhm.
course, it's not that. It's much more than
Mhm.
that. That might be there in
Mhm.
the DNA. But I just wanted to kind
Yeah,
of
it's
call attention to that, and say that a
yeah.
lot of these tropes and these things are recycled, but they're done in a
Mhm.
different way, to like
Mhm.
really pull you in. So yeah, like
Mhm.
you, you have a lot more depth on me than that. But I will say,
Mhm.
back in the 90s and the 2000s, whether when I was under my parents' house, sometimes we would have cable, sometimes we wouldn't. Sometimes a relative would, where you would go and show up at their house, and like that was your time
Mhm.
when you could catch up with MTV. Like when I was
Mhm.
a young teen,
Mhm.
my when we didn't have cable, I would always sneak in a watch in my grandparents' house and watch
Yeah.
catch up on all the things that I could, in a week or a
Mhm.
weekend or so visit. But going with that, noir, for me, I went through a very big phase, like where I downloaded and watched all, the big
Mhm.
top 10. I don't know, pull up a top 10.
Mhm.
You South by Southwest. That's like probably my favorite. Maltese Falcon, etc. For this mystery angle here. But I just wanted to kind of pull that out and just highlight that while we were
Mhm.
talking about
Oh,
that,
and
because there are.
it just mhm. Go
Oh, go ahead.
ahead. Oh, yeah, just kind of asterisk a little bit. The when Mike was talking about giallo, just because our audience doesn't know what that is, it's Italian. Italian giallos are yeah, genre of sort of it's sort of it has the, like Mike said, sort of film noir kind of aspects. It's usually about a mystery. There's a killer involved. A lot of views of hands killing things. But yeah, it's kind of a mix, an interesting mix of film noir and
Mhm.
slasher movies. It's kind of sort of a DNA of both. But yeah, that's the wonderful thing about cinema and music and any kind of creative endeavor. The creative people will take a little bit of this, a little bit of that, kind of throw it in the pot and kind of make something new. And
Sure.
that's always been the great thing about art and whatnot. And then there's also the purists that love just the getting down to the bare bones of it. And Double Indemnity is sort of like the kind of the it has the DNA of film noir. It's got everything that's
Right.
iconic about film noir. There's it's just sort of like the roadmap of what you want to have. And in fact, the, it's been often imitated and stolen from.
Hmm.
And I was surprised that there's not as many remakes. I think there was a TV remake of it
In the
back in the
70s.
day. And
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
also, I know Mike maybe get a little bit more in detail on this, but it's based on a novel that first came out serialized in a magazine. The writer's James M. Kahn, and I believe
Hmm.
it was based on a real life event. It was that
Really?
part of your research?
Yeah, I didn't quite get on that side. I might run into it a little bit later, but no, but sorry. Yeah, no,
But
I
yeah, I
just
think
wanted
there
to.
was like a
Well,
big news article about the sort of the kind of the backbone of the story about a
right, right,
insurance
right.
scam thing, and
Oh,
in
right,
real
right.
life. And so he goes, that'd be a good story. And he wrote Double Indemnity about that.
Yeah, no, well, I just wanted to kind of take a minute to kind of set the table
Mhm.
there for noir
Oh yeah.
and giallos and
Yep.
whatnot.
I'll
Just as
crack
that.
open a boomer juice as you do that.
No, absolutely. Yeah, I wanted to kind of spend a little bit more time on that because I feel before we get into like you covered it again, you covered it perfectly. This is a defining film that is noir, like Tom's was saying. Yeah, and this was drawn from real life, as many things are. But again, this goes in, and it'll kind of get buried the plot here. To kind of set the plot up, we have an insurance salesman, or excuse me, Walter Neff, and he is
Walter.
what's that?
Oh, I was just having fun with his name, Walter. Good.
Yeah, yeah, it's kind of like this poor schlub. He's been on the job for 11 years, 10 years, decade or so, and he's opportunistic and ambitious, and I think he's kind of always been eyeing to hatch a scheme. I guess if you were to kind of, although the character plays very light and well on the screen, and your primary view is him narrating what happened and when is kind of the question of all of it as it goes
Mhm.
down. But to our film, and as we get into it here, he falls prey to the kind of the temptation, the finding where he can fit in with it, and he's kind of backed up by his actuary, and yeah, which is Barton Keyes. And then you have this other, you have the opportunity, which is the Dietrichson Phyllis character who plays Barbara Stanwyck of tremendous fame. That kind of went on from there. Like I'm kind of calling out the bigger names that kind of were through.
Yeah.
This one had a few. And to be clear, I'm not trying to be uppity, snobby, any of this kind of thing. These characters are like I have seen Barbara Stanwyck and a few other kind of things that I've seen just in my small life experience, like that you would talk to like if we were of age to have actually seen some of these kind of things rehashed as it were 70 years later. But anyway,
Yeah.
so what did you think of the main characters? And I know it was a little bit different kind of scenario than you're used to, but every time I see one of these films, older film, meaning something older than like my birth year, maybe 10 years before that, call it that, maybe 20 years, but classic films that fall in that range and be in before, I always get a tickle out of they tell the story, how they tell the story, how it's presented, the exposition, the fact that they're doing also kind of like doing this thing that we've watched so many of these things and we haven't really talked. We talked a little bit about it. We're not that kind of channel, but we do dip into the nerd part, like where a take for this would have been like 10 plus minutes. And I'm sure that that's true for how it works for today and in
Mhm.
distant past, but this was not something like where they could just go in the digital thing and then do it in post or do it like a cookie cutter Marvel film or Star
Right.
Wars film or show for that matter, big or small screen. Here's the template.
Mhm.
Da, 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 da. They don't like it, they can test screen it, and then they can kind of do these after cut. All these kind of things
Yeah.
were done in a very short period of time with things like where they couldn't mess around. Anyway, I
Mm.
just I'm kind of touching on the deeper links that we'll leave off at, but I want to kind of get your
Yeah.
impact, your statement
Yeah.
of like when you enter into these things and you kind of cross reference that with like what you last saw in the modern realm. Um, how does it hit you? I guess is what my question is.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. The There was a big buzz about the story, the book when it came out, and they a lot of studios wanted it, and was offering the author like $25,000 for it, and the censors at the time, the Hayes office, was like, this subject matter, no, it ain't gonna work, dog, in a movie. Yeah, it's a little too risque for modern audiences here. So I got
This
the
movie was
axe, and so
risque back at the
all
time
the
too. Yeah.
film studios kind of dropped out, and I was like, and a few years later, I think Paramount got interested in it again, and I think they offered him like 10,000 or 15,000 for it then. I think it was
Right.
15,000, and so yeah, it was one of those movies that were like right on the edge where the censors were like going, I don't know about this. So yeah, about a couple of bad people, and yeah, and a lot of the actors didn't want to do the role because they didn't want to be like that bad guy, uh the Fred MacMurray was in fact doing a lot of comedies at the time. And, he was kind of he was kind of worried that the studio wouldn't let him do it, but from what I read, that there were some contract negotiations going on, and
Right.
they thought if they let him do this, then and it didn't do so well, they could run decide how what they would get for him as far as money, and maybe get him on the cheap again on the contract. But then this movie went on to be nominated for Academy Awards, and it was a
Right.
big hit. So yeah, that didn't pay out well. It went to Fred MacMurray's benefit. And then same with Barbara Stanwyck. She was kind of leery about doing it, and
Right.
Billy Wilder was told her, "Are you an actress or a mouse?" And
No,
that kind of challenged her to do it.
that's very true because it goes back to well back then if the studio was I mean it's still boss, but back then if they didn't want you on the lot, if you were cast out from MGM property,
Yeah.
you were half the world was unavailable to you, no matter how powerful or famous you were. Now there were some that kind of went on, and there are some other greats too from that era, like Lucy. Uh, I'm trying to think of Lucille Ball, excuse me, like where
Mhm.
this is probably 20 years down the road, or around the same time, but like where she's like, nope, I got my own production company, and you're going to keep Star Trek on. You're going to keep it around. But anyway, that's kind of like a throw into in case you're getting too, if we're getting too dry with the thing, but and that's my, but the thing. See, and the other thing about this film too was that it was censored as well
Yeah.
because in 1944 you had a movie that was talking openly about committing adultery, and
Yeah.
although they do a teethy kiss, like I there's some
Yeah.
kind of 19 I'm kind of
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
making light a little bit, but they had that and they had murder, and they had
Mhm.
elements that well if they were modern day they would absolutely like ring the this would have been like a double adultery. It would have involved well I won't get into it, but there's
But yeah, you were
aspects
talking
there.
about. Go ahead.
Well, I'm just
You
saying just the perverse aspects of it from
Yeah.
1944's perspective. It was this film was perverse in some
Right.
realms,
Yeah.
and they had to rein it in. I don't have
Mhm.
too much on that, but I just wanted to call attention to
Yeah.
that because it goes with the same line with what you were talking about.
Yeah, and everybody's wearing suits, and yeah, they they didn't loosen up their collar a whole lot,
No,
yeah.
no.
So yeah, it was sort of interesting in that yeah, the like you going back to what you were saying, that they didn't have the know-how to make the huge special effects, so you really had to dig in on the things that you could
Mhm.
exploit and do well, and that's of course the writing and the acting. The actors in this are fantastic. Fred McMurray's the perfect blend of charm and smarm, so to speak. He can ride that edge of, one moment you want to be his pal and want to get to know him, and the other is like, oh yeah, this guy's something else. We both worked in offices, and there's always that guy that's a little too friendly, and you're saying there's something a little off about him, and then and other people can't see it. They're like all in on how wonderful this person is, but but you can kind of detect that there's something there with that guy. But yeah, and he plays that perfectly. And Barbara Stanwyck is great, although she wears a fairly bad wig during this movie, and I
Sometimes
think
it can be, it pulls you out of
the
it a little bit. I noticed that. I noticed that.
yeah, and Billy Wilder defended it as they were filming, saying it just kind of shows you how phony she is. But I think
Mm.
by midway through he realized how bad it was, and I think he said that was sort of his worst mistake. I think one of the set designers or one of the people on it said that. That we wanted Barbara Stanwyck, but we got George Washington because of the wig. Turned out pretty funny. But to be
I
honest, I
joke.
don't think it was that bad. The wig's not that bad for the time
It's
period.
not. It's not. But you can tell like where, and there's very, you really I watched this movie a few times anyway, but you
Mhm.
you can kind of see like where their head moves, and like the scalp it does something else, but that's like very light. But no, that's a fair point. But for the most part, though, they do a very good job of layering in the story, and they're pretty much you're full frontal with all of this
Mhm.
as it goes on. And
Oh,
God,
mhm.
oh, go ahead, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna mention, as
I
long
love the
as
scenery
as
too.
well as the writing, the it's written by based on the original story by James M. Caan, but the writers, screenwriters is Billy Wilder, and he brought in he didn't do his normal writing partner because the writing partner didn't like the subject matter. So
Mm,
they brought in Raymond Chandler, and this was his
right.
first stab at writing a screenplay, and he didn't really know what he was doing, so yeah, it was a big education for him. And he was a hot commodity at the time because he had just came out with the book, The Big Sleep, and
That's right.
yeah, they wanted him on this, and it was very interesting. I don't think him and Billy Wilder got on very well.
I
And if
think
you
you're right.
remember, Mike, also did Strangers on a Train, and he wrote
We did.
the screenplay with with Alfred Hitchcock on that one, and they didn't get along either. I guess that Raymond Chandler may have been kind of a hard person to get along with, and actually he was trying to get off alcohol. He was in Alcoholics Anonymous while he was writing this, and Billy Wilder famously said that he thinks he drove him back to drink because he became an alcoholic again during the writing of this, but
Right.
which is unfortunate. And also, if you're eagle-eyed like me and also read Wikipedia, you can see a little bit of Raymond Chandler. He's in it. At the very beginning of the movie, Neff goes to Keyes's office, and as he's leaving the office, there's a Raymond Chandler sitting waiting outside the office on a chair, and I think that's one of
Interesting.
the rare times that he's ever been on film. So
Interesting.
check that
Well,
out.
I did not know. I did not know that. No.
And I haven't
Uh,
read much of. I have not read Raymond Chandler's work, which I really want to. When I was big into film noir, the writer I really got into was Jim Thompson.
right.
He's a wonderful kind of crime noir kind of writer. That's man, he's awesome.
Well,
But yeah, the Raymond Chandler I haven't. I will eventually read some of his works.
well,
But
bookmark
yeah.
bookmark that, Tom, because we will revisit that next year.
Mhm,
And maybe in a little
mhm.
bit more hard boiled um, approach for Raymond. I love that you brought that in, that we did that before with the Big Sleep. Well, with the Stranger on a Train,
Mhm,
because that
mhm.
this is going to be something you're going to be seeing a little bit more of as we kind of go
Yep.
forward and explore this
Yep,
genre.
a train or trolley, trolley references were
Well,
in this movie.
all
Very
throughout,
interesting.
that was like a backbone of a device that that used to the audience to connect with. Come on,
Mhm.
see, yeah, babe. You, I'm kind of being a little bit lighthearted on the thing, but that the this whole kind of point of like being together, and this had everything, and Barbara Stanwyck was she was um she was a catch, wig or not, all joking aside,
Yeah.
but shame
Well,
on me for not
when I was
bringing these
watching it,
things.
you know, you kind of have to kind of view things in your own context as well. Like Fred McMurray will always be the dad from My Three Sons, you know. So it was sort of
I
hard to
Yeah, that's
separate that
well, the nice
image
guy.
to this.
You want to like him, you want to love him, you want to
Mhm,
he is the
mhm,
prototypical best
mhm,
friend, nice guy
mhm,
that you could ever
mhm.
come into. You know,
Yeah,
to add
and
on to what you were
yeah, so
saying.
yeah, you got to shrug off him wanting to yell at Chip or something, but yeah, I also so with Barbara Stanwyck, I kept thinking of her as the mom from Bonanza. So yes, start off watching it, you kind of have to shrug off those things, and but the wonderful thing about this movie is the acting, and and also there is a barrier of entry. Those people that love this movie and is full on into this, um maybe they don't quite understand it, but if you sat down like your kids, there's sort of a kind of a barrier of entry on these movies, just because they were dealing with a lot of the censors, and so
Mm,
maybe they had a hint at certain things, so it's not as in your face. So with these movies, sometimes if you go in cold, like you do if it's a first viewing, you do have to kind of warm up to the approach of filmmaking, and so yeah, as you're watching it, you kind of have to kind of go into the world and kind of throw away your conceptions of what a movie should be, and kind of embrace it for what it is. But I think the strong acting and the writing and the world that they build, you can't help but get pulled into it, and by a quarter in, you're or maybe halfway in, you're there, you're in it, and you're fully in it, and by the end of it, you're gripped by the whole thing. So I think that's
agreed.
some of the best movies in are the best because they are, no matter who you are, they could pull you in, and you can't help but watch it and finish it. It's one of those movies that if you're like flipping channels, which I don't, I think it's kind of a dying thing now. So with digital and everything, but if you're flipping a channel and you land upon it and you start watching it, you can't help but get hooked in and want to know what's going on.
Well, no, no, what you say is true. It really is. This movie pulls you in, and by the time you see kind of, it's tricky because it shows you, and you can kind of extrapolate like any reasonable monkey that is behind
Yeah.
the camera or behind the screen. You can see how the storyline develops, but how it gets to the twist is kind of the fun part. That is why. How long was Lost on, Tom? The TV show Lost. How long was that on?
6 seasons, I think it
Yeah,
was.
6 seasons. How many? How many? That's just like one thing of like following out something
Hmm.
that, as we saw it in real time,
Hmm.
that most people out there, probably the last 15 or so years, or excuse me, 20, 25 years, um, Lost is part of the, like that is a kind of like a touch point that you can see the story develop like that with the there's going to be a twist or something weird or something different, and this
Hmm.
delivers on that, and it's right in front of you, and you're right. The first part, you obviously me, I am, if I am a contemporary viewer, whether you're seeing this video that me and Tom do here in 2024 or you see it in 2029, um, you see this film in 1944 and you understand that you are a different that's what kind of makes it a little bit more
Hmm.
special, I guess.
Hmm.
um, and ultimately,
Shout out to my peeps in 3030 after the apocalypse have dug this up and are watching it now. Shout out to you guys.
God bless you, Tom. I love you, man. uh, Yeah, for the apocalypse that is about to become upon it. That's a joke. That's a joke. But anyway,
Yeah.
uh, putting that aside, um, you can understand that, like, yes, there's some things that are what we would consider kitschy, like maybe her hair or the stuff. Putting that all aside, though, you are drawn into the overall story. It pulls you in. That's why this thing works, and it's such a, pardon my
And
language,
there's a
fucking classic.
yeah.
And not just this, but this is up there with the although it might not be quite as resonant with me as some other giallos that like I this is kind of like why I love the giallos and why I was a sucker for it before I even knew what they were, because it
Yeah.
pulls you in. Although I like the giallo horror version of this because it takes the
Hmm.
noir and it takes that kidness out of it. What we're that,
Hmm.
and some of that kidness comes in because of the era that it was made in, and we're talking
Hmm.
30s, uh, 20s, 30s radio dramas that we haven't even talked about. Whatever, that's an ultra nerdy thing that we will never get
Yeah.
into on this show. But I will say,
Yeah.
but then you go to the 40s, 50s, and 60s, and then it starts to change into another genre. And then
Yeah.
you have that giallo. So this is why I love that, and we're going to be exploring many more of these coming into the thing because um, if Tom and I love to do it, we're going to do it. So,
Hmm.
but we would love to hear, and I want to take a moment here, and I'm going to throw it back to you, Tom, for the
Hmm.
audience to welcome them in and say, what is your favorite noir? What's your favorite giallo? What's your favorite murder mystery, criminal thriller, whatever that is? What is it to you? Whether on the big screen or small screen, I would love to hear back from that if you've been with us this far. Anyway, I'll throw it back to you, Tom.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, I love the writing on this, and I was fascinated. Well, with writing, especially dialogue, those people, those screenwriters that really kind of dig in and
Oh
really
man,
fall in love with the cadence and the words and the wordplay. We both love Quentin Tarantino. He's sort of
yes,
the modern guy that we look to for wonderful dialogue. But this movie has some
he is
wonderful
fallible
dialogue, and
though.
I
I
think
will say
the
he is
yeah,
fallible.
yeah. but yeah, they were going to Billy Wilder wanted to use a lot of the dialogue from the actual story that James M. Caan wrote, and Raymond Chandler was like, "No, that will not work on the screen. The dialogue will not play." And Billy Wilder really wanted to try it, so he brought in a couple of people to read the lines in front of them to see how it would play out in real life. And he had to admit that, yeah, the dialogue was bad and that or would not work on the screen. So, so they had to. So
Right.
that attention to detail for the dialogue, even though the thing I really am fascinated, want to know more about, and want to read his work of Raymond Chandler is that, it sounded like he was kind of eccentric kind of guy, maybe hard to get along with, but and maybe maybe we wouldn't agree with everything that did in real life, maybe would get canceled nowadays, um but he's he's really dedicated and loved the what he was doing. And the what you see on the screen shows that passion and love. And you really, and the actors rose to the occasion, and delivered the goods, so to speak.
No, you're right, and it's funny you mention canceled, right?
Yeah.
So we're I think we're quickly approaching the time like where the eclipse of woke or anti-woke or whatever is, or cancel culture or whatever. I think we're coming to the end of that. And we're kind of coming back to like where, and this is true no matter what happens. If you are an a-hole or a dick or a just a person that is very difficult, never mind who or what you are, all right, as your identity or whatever. Your superficial characteristics that nobody really cares about anyway. But if you're not that, and you move into this realm, um, a lot of the things that were true in 1944 are still true today, meaning that if you had talent and merit, you would more than likely rise. Now, I'm not going to say there's not shenanigans there or whatever, but Khan he had a lot of problems with with this. But again, find me a good story or movie or whatever that didn't have some kind of internal, and I'm not going to get into super deep with this. Double indemnity is what it presents itself to be to you, the viewer, for the most part. Like it works just fine, but I'm sure there's some nerd who's done a thesis on this, like where you extrapolate the conflict on the set or therein, either before or after, kind of these things like you have that we've run into over and over again, like where personalities or whatever, never mind them being a womanizer or whatever, the
Yeah.
flaws. We're talking about flawed people that are creative,
Mhm.
which kind of goes into the upper argument that we're not going to get into, maybe one day, like where you are a talented individual but you have flaws. Like, and maybe the circumstances of time allow you to come on the scene and you can do this whole thing and you can really make it count. But this is
Yeah.
one like where, from whether you and I, this is same as you. I need to go back and write, or not write, read his novels that really go into it. And I don't think we're going to go into it too far, but that's just kind of the point of like good media comes from conflict. It comes from some
Yeah.
variance of that. Is I guess my point.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Mixing it up and getting in there. But yeah, one of the things I'm glad you were talking about woke culture. We won't get get into the
Well,
fine details of that.
we're no,
But
I'm just talking about that as a thing that we are bypassing
no.
or we observe. What
Well,
I'm just not saying good or bad. I'm just saying in general.
well, no,
That's a
yeah.
thing
One of the
that
things that
exists.
I remember, because I saw this was one of the noir movies I did watch when I was going through all my stuff during the '90s. But one of the things I would think about during the 90s and the 2000s when I was watching older movies is how quaint they were. They had to
Mm,
deal with the
that's true.
censors. There was things you could not do in a movie or in polite society, that we took for granted in the 90s and the 2000s. Like, oh, you could pretty much do anything you wanted to in a movie. Everything was, kind of loose. We didn't have to walk around in suits and ties and hats and minds our P's and Q's and worry about what we said. We could say whatever we wanted, within reason. But it was sort of like an open society. And then I was thinking, well, we're kind of folding back in on ourselves with, the past few years. It's like, well, there's certain things you can't say. There's certain
Right.
things. It was sort of like we're looping back to the 40s, the 30s and 40s when maybe we were focusing on different things that you can or can't do, but that kind of restrictive environment and time sort of kind of is playing out in real time to us, and it just shows you how cyclical history is, and that maybe we're kind of looping out of that and kind of going back to a kind of a free environment of maybe in a few years or a decade or two, we may be looking back at this time as kind of quaint, how we were kind of restricting ourselves to certain things and not letting us say certain things in polite society, and that's not politically correct, and that's
Right.
on the wrong side of history and whatnot.
Right.
Whereas
Right. Whatever it is. Right.
it's very fascinating, as a person that kind of occasionally studies history, is how things have a way of going through these changes.
No, I agree. I agree. Well, what we agree. Well, the whole thing is that like when you start to dig into a movie that you liked or you saw or you have any interest in, guess what? You're a nerd. That's what I want to pull it back to, and the fact that you can enjoy these films. We are in a golden age of receivership, I should say, like where we can go back and see these things that our dads and our moms watched, like in a theater. I am jealous of my previous generation, um, of the '60s, of experiencing that. Anyway,
Mhm.
doesn't matter, but I will say this. Um, this is a treat whenever you can go back and watch these things, and I gotta say, for as much doofiness and kitschness that we would call the '40s, um, you very quickly get on board with like what's going on, here where
Mhm.
it's seen here. Anyway, I don't want to belabor the point here too much with the ins and outs of it, but like you see kind of like this character arc of William Neff or Walter Neff, of like where he goes from like this prototypical nobody to the main character that he becomes in the film. But you kind of see him rise and fall in complex ways that are
Mhm.
absent of our modern things. There's a movie once in a while, and I just want to be clear: the movies that I'm talking about are the ones that get the on the awards list or whatever. And even of those fine thread of ones, this is one of them that makes it, and you are gonna have a good time. And I know we've kind of skated around more bigger issues here, but there are some kind of concrete facts of reality. I love how they deal with reality in this film, and
Mhm.
how they even though that what's coming, like it wraps up in a unique way that I will not spoil, and I'm sure you won't either. But and
Yeah, there's a huge alien invasion at the end. No, just kidding. But
right,
no, it's yeah, I love the
yeah,
how the movie looks. Obviously, there's a lot of talk about how the light. Mike even mentioned it at the beginning. The lighting, the lights and darks. Each frame almost looks like Sometimes it looks almost like a painting. You got your Venetian blinds that play across people's faces, like maybe
right,
prison bars. People have kind of mentioned that. And
oh yeah,
almost
yeah,
some of those frames in the movie almost looks like a Edward Hopper painting, who was big at the time. I love his work. And
he
But
did
yeah,
the
it's
the
a
famous cafe
a
scene, right?
beautiful looking movie, and I love the kind of when they go to their clandestine meetings in the grocery store is quite entertaining as well. There's sort of a smaller woman walking around there at one point, wanting something on the top shelf, and
Oh right.
just the little minor characters are quite enjoyable in this movie as well. And I noticed they were right by the baby food, and Fred MacMurray, his pet name for Neff's pet name for the Barbara Stanwyck character was Baby. So I wonder
Yeah,
if that was
baby.
sort of a kind of a
Right.
play.
Yeah. Can you hear me, Tom?
Yeah, I sure can.
Yeah. Yeah. No. No. I agree. Well, that kind of that goes into well, you laid it out pretty well. The, that well, that's the thing that I like about these kind of characters and exposition and plot and whatnot.
Mhm.
They are able to like kind of go into this longer form discussion that we have. Anyway, whatever. Anyway, anyway.
I also love Edgar G. Robinson. I think he was my favorite character in the movie. Yeah, he's a guy that likes to figure out puzzles. He's I think I think people would kind of maybe term him a little autistic now, that he's kind of obsessed with figuring out the numbers and the angles on things and the wonderful guy. Yeah, he has that the thing where he's got that little man in him that talks to him, tells him what's right and what's wrong, and then if it's wrong, it kind of feels like a lump of concrete in him.
Oh, he's got a concrete in him. Once he gets biting on it, he's never stops. Yeah. Well, I
And
didn't do it
my one of
justice,
my
but yeah.
favorite lines in it is um Walter gets a call from the woman, and he pretends it's maybe one of his flings. I think he called her Marjorie or something, and Edward
Margie,
and
right.
Keys goes, yeah, Marjorie, yeah, I think she drinks from the bottle.
Right.
She
Right,
drinks straight
right,
from the
right.
bottle.
Well,
I love that.
there's a little well, and actually what you were saying before, I wanted to kind of bring up
Mhm,
again, and I don't know that we're ever will probably never see this, but you know AI, right? And I know AI.
mhm,
Actually, you asked me an AI video question, but I have no idea. But I
mhm,
will say, um, you mentioned the Venetian blinds, right? Like how the thing
mhm.
was, the thing.
Yeah.
Can you imagine a day in which we see this movie, but maybe a clip of it seen where it's in color and then the AI does the whole background of like, because there's a lot of extraneous detail when the narration happens. He's like, maybe you remember this or not, but early in the first quarter of the film, he talks about those Spanish something other houses that everybody was crazy about, 10 years
Mhm,
before. Um,
mhm.
and it really spins you because you're watching this and you're like, wait, what year was this? You kind of think back to, and of course I'm disconnected from because I've never grown up in California. But anyway, it's an extra layer that we can hopefully bring back in a future, thing. Like as technology gets better, maybe there's like a whiz kid on YouTube now that maybe saw 5 seconds of her thing, and they know how to do all the Unreal Engine stuff and all that good goodness. Anyway, the point I'm making is we as creators watch these things, and it is a great source of fuel and inspiration. No matter where we come in on it, as the nerd,
Mhm.
as it goes for Star Wars or noir or giallos or whatever. We're
Yep.
hopefully your home channel to find new things that you have not
Yeah.
seen.
Yeah, and this movie, as it played along, it really got my imagination going. I kind of thought of what would happen if say so there was different paths that followed, and maybe Neff went on to do other things, maybe became sort of a mastermind, maybe his future. One of the things about these with the censors and the time it was made, there's that sense of right and wrong, that the bad guys have to find their moral justice. You can't let the bad thing be successful. So obviously we're not spoiling anything, but that was just the way that the times were. So you're kind of narrowed down on what you could, how you could end a movie. You couldn't let a morally questionable person get away with it, in these movies. So, in I also think that I think our personal morality kind of constricts us as well. To have a successful story told about an amoral person, you really kind of have to get the audience to play along with the character and be sympathetic to them. And I think long form um, content does that quite well. Like I'm currently rewatching The Sopranos, and of course, Breaking Bad's a wonderful example as well of those morally questionable persons, and Dexter is another one, where you kind of are rooting with the characters, even though they're morally reprehensible. They do horrible things, and I think one of the trickier things is how you end the story. That's always going to be a fine line. And do you let the amoral person have a happily ever after story? Does that make
Right.
sense? Do they answer for their crimes? What is how do you end that? And I think it really takes a creative person to really kind of play it out without it seeming as obvious, or oh, they took the easy way out, or that didn't play out the way they want. And I guess it's also almost like a personal opinion on how that plays out. But I think this movie does a wonderful job of how it plays out, the ending, and how they do it. Because I think they sort of do it on their own terms as well. But yeah, it's very, very fascinating. They don't play it the way that you would think. It kind of plays out in a satisfying way, is maybe what I'm trying to say, is that it's very satisfying how they end the movie. It's not cheap, and it's not like I didn't come away thinking, oh well, they just had to do it because of what was happening at the time. It made sense for the story.
Right. No, I agree. I agree. Ultimately, higher level at this film presently, you had masterful performances as
Hmm.
they became typecast and archetypes and whatever,
Yeah.
genre, things that
Yeah.
define noir and what you should look
Hmm.
like. Nice guys, nice guy
Yeah.
Sam, and
Yeah.
kind of jumping in
Yeah,
to
and I
your
love this.
thing.
I love the scene that you've got a still of. There's that wonderful play where she's admitting or saying what she thinks her stepmom did, and the play across Fred McMurray's face as Walter, as she's
Perfect.
looking away and he's looking at her, and he's realizing. You see that dark,
What he knows and what
manipulative
she knows
mind at work
crosses.
that he plays across with his eyes. It's wonderfully done and wonderfully acted, and that scene, I just ate it up. It was so good and so rich with detail, and just wonderful. And if you look at this, you've got the Venetian blinds, the back of Fred McMurray. He's the he's the bad guy. He's the one that should be in prison, and she's playing off, and she's not covered in that. It's a nice interplay. The whole scene's just,
Perfect.
oh man, perfect. Yeah.
No, 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 no. Absolutely. Just this one still, like, and what you're
Mhm.
saying is it's all true. Like, this is why that I have excitement for. Um, I'm a fan of AI when it comes to the point of, like, take this scene, and then AI is going to be the special thing that can deduce the inverse of this thing, of
Mhm.
what created it, and then be able to come. There's going to be a lot of garbage, but
Yeah,
the
skibbity
fact,
toilet stuff. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
gotcha.
well, no, that's that's very Gen Z approved, my friend. That is
Uh,
Skibbity Toilet is a Gen Z new wave, whatever the hell, whatever the. Anyway, no, to go back to your what you were saying, this is where, like, you get a definition of what noir means, of what dialogue means, of what narration, of what light and dark mean. I'm a very big fan of that, and light and dark are even more important in a black and white context. Um,
Mhm.
Black and white was the standard for a very long time. So
Mhm.
if you can reverse engineer what works and what doesn't,
Mhm.
you want to be a nerd about it, like we are. You would go back
Yeah.
and you would pull all the black and white, things before it changed over in, 50s, 60s, whatever. Anyway, doesn't matter. But no, I love this film. This is a classic one that I had not seen before. I mean, before we talked, that I pulled it out. And next week, I'll let you lead off with that, because we're a little bit over an hour and we're right on the mark. I would just say, kind of wrapping up my thoughts about this. Um, there is going to be some angle or point of view that you come in on with this film. You will not regret watching this film. And if you think this film is boring or whatever, I would challenge you to watch it, because I have nothing to do with this. This thing's going to pull you in, because you're going to be like, oh, okay, that's dumb. And then 10 minutes later, 10 minutes later, the film's over because you watched the whole thing. But I will say that,
Mhm.
and I'll throw it back to you, my friend.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I always look at people cross-eyed whenever they say, "Oh, you got to watch this TV series. You have to get through the first season before it gets good." But it's like that's what 10, 15 hours before it gets. No. I'm not doing it. But yeah, with this movie, it's like yeah, maybe it takes about 20 minutes to get really fully into it. But yeah, once you do, it's you're good to the end. But yeah, there's something for everybody in this movie. Those that love good acting, great acting, there you can watch this for the great acting. If you love the writing, if you just love dialogue, you could just fall in love with this movie. If you're just really into how the cinematography of it, the play of light and dark, you could eat this movie up. This is a wonderful scene, with the door. They had to rig
Oh
the
God,
door
I
and put
love
it in
that.
backwards, because apartment doors go inwards.
Right,
Because if
right.
you're walking, yeah, that would cause so many
This was
accidents
perfect,
opening a
so
door.
perfect. Yeah.
But it plays it's wonderful because you're in the fantasy of the movie. It makes sense. It makes sense in the scene, and it creates such wonderful atmosphere and dread and suspense for you, because that moment where the two people that shouldn't meet up are potentially going to find each other
Oh
and
my
cause the whole
God. Oh
the
man.
deck of cards to collapse, stack of cards to collapse. It's a
It,
wonderful a wonderful scene.
oh my.
And yeah,
It.
at one point we need to kind of go through on stuff that happens in movies that can't happen in real life or don't make sense in
Well,
real life.
that's kind of the thing, like where you have a window and it's pristine and it's like a one, like, and a tap
Mhm,
hits it, and then it starts to spider web out, and it kind of goes from there. Like
mhm,
that anxiety before it breaks in.
mhm,
What's going to happen is what I love this movie,
mhm.
what it does
Yep.
so well, and sets up.
Yeah,
But
and
I,
there's wonderful dialogue. I think one of my favorite lines of the movie is the line where it's wonderful. They work in, a lot of movies, especially a lot of noir movies. There's a narration by the protagonist, and it makes sense. The guy's sort of confessing his sins and is talking into a dictaphone. It just makes sense. It makes totally sense in this movie for him to narrate the thing. And one of the things he says is, "Could I have known that murder could sometimes smell like a honeysuckle?" Honeysuckle. Such a beautiful little line there.
mhm,
But yeah, a lot of wonderful imagery with the dialogue. Wonderfully done. I knew I liked this movie, but it's been so long since I'd seen it that it was kind of watching it fresh this
mhm,
time as well. And I just fell in love with. I think I appreciated it much more with my knowledge of cinema that has grown over the years. It just makes it
I agree.
that much more wonderful. So, yeah, if you're it's one of those movies worth revisiting. So if it you saw this a long time ago and kind of watched us on a whim and haven't watched it again, I encourage you to do so. I think you'll get a lot out of it on your second, third, fourth, even fifth viewing. It's one of those always giving kind of movie. You can find something that you hadn't seen in the first few times you've seen it.
Well, this is one of those things like where you're going to pull out something new every time you see it, wherever you're coming from. Um, I think this movie alone is the definition of it's the journey, right? Whatever that means to you whenever you watch this, I cannot encourage you enough to go see it or watch it, no matter if you're 10, 20, or 100, whatever. You're
Yep.
you're gonna find something new from it, and you're gonna find the base definition of suspense, of mystery,
Mhm.
of archetypal characters, of ones that are like average Joe, or excuse me. Uh-oh, Tom went somewhere. Hopefully he'll be back.
Yeah. I think let's see. Am I still here? Oh,
No, I don't see you on
okay.
my end.
All right.
Hopefully it'll. Yep,
Okay,
there you
there it
go.
goes.
Yep, yep. You
Yeah, I
just came
froze
back
on the
in, right?
screen. Sorry
All good.
to cause some drama there.
Yeah, yeah. No, all good, all good. I was just saying, you should you come at this from a certain point of view, and you're going to be able to get something wholly different from it when you enter. This is, like I said, a base definition, a roadmap of how certain things are. Um, easily easily applicable to that. And I didn't send you this message yet, Tom, but for later on, I'm going to rewatch this and pull out the thought that I lost, for such a great collaboration that we've done over the years from this thing, that I think will be very cool to explore if you're a nerd. But I will say this. Go watch this. Tell us what you think. I agree. I had not seen this one per se beforehand, but you had, but it was up there for you. Again, this is the definition of what a film should be for a mystery or whatever, wherever you come in on this at. But I will say,
Yeah, it was one last thing. Yeah, Billy Wilder, wonderful director. You check out his other movies as well. But funny thing is, over Thanksgiving, I was talking to my younger sister, and she was mentioning that she'd recently watched The Apartment, that's directed by Billy Wilder, and she was the had a lot of her favorite actors were saying that that was their favorite movie, and she was
interesting.
watching it and didn't quite understand why it was their favorite movie. But yeah, it's interesting that happenstance, and she didn't know we were covering double indemnity, but that the fact that two of Billy Wilder's movies are still in
Right,
active
right.
conversations to this day just kind of proves how powerful his work is, and kind of transcends time. And that's what wonderful art does. But yeah, Mike
Absolutely.
hit us up and said, let's do noir. And he said, bring a noir to the table. And Mike brought a quintessential, you can't argue, it's definitely film noir, up and down, straight the line. It is a film noir. And so I challenged myself to find one that's modern day, that people may call neo noir. You may challenge me and say that this is not noir. My challenge next week, or whenever we cover it, hopefully next week, I'll prove to you that it is a film noir. The two movies I kind of struggled with. I love Inherent Vice and Under the Silver Lake. Under the Silver Lake won out, and so that's what we'll be
Oh, I'm
covering
so
next
excited.
week.
I
And
am so
yeah,
excited.
I'm very excited about discussing it and seeing if
Yep.
Mike and the audience, if I could convince them it's a noir film.
No, I am excited. I've not seen either one of those films at all, and I only had like maybe a couple ahead of time, but I am very excited to pull those in and review them, and we will absolutely check us out next week. But you'll only know if you subscribe. You'll have a front row
Mhm,
ticket to all that we do on this little thing called the
mhm,
First Last Nerdom. And with that, I
mhm,
think we're rolling it up here.
mhm,
We have 234 films, or 3, or 34, whatever it is. And we
Yeah.
have 414 of you who are out there who hang out with us. We appreciate it so much. If you could subscribe, if you're a new viewer, we'd love it. I think there's like 99 to 1 out there are not subscribers. So if you are a part of the 99%, please subscribe. I think that's some good bullshit. That's relatively true that I can say on the camera.
I think
But
Keys would probably kind of recheck your math on that, but yeah, and you can find us on Reddit. I'll be I don't do a whole lot except try to promote our stuff, but yeah, we're out there kicking it up on Reddit, and I'm also on X. Check me out, McAllister_T. Check me outside. How about that? I'll be there promoting our stuff. And Mike, you might want to talk about your socials again.
yeah, I will say, I will see you see this little guy here, the little blue check mark guy. I will just
Mhm.
slant that as the only time that I will use my special privilege and remind the audience. But I am verified on X, Twitter, YouTube. I think that is going to be a very big thing that's going to take off as we go forward. Maybe not. Maybe that's my privilege. But I will say this: Tom and I are here for you if you want to meet us on the field of battle or the cafeteria of Nerdom and hang out and have lunch with us as it goes.
Mhm.
I am also available. Oh, I just didn't say ApeIt underscore Ink. That is also my nom de plume. APEIT.IT, excuse me. Such a dumb domain, but whatever. Until I change it, that's the thing. Where you can find me for heavier hitting stuff or dumb, stupid internet things. But above all, you should join us every week after week, on the First the Last Nerdom on YouTube.
Yep. And last week we covered The Visit. We may have a couple of videos coming out
Oh,
for you that we've got
uno
kind of stacked
momento.
up, but yeah, The Visit. We were off last week because of Thanksgiving, but yeah, we had one in the bag, The Visit,
It did
that
pretty
we
well.
surprised you with, and I liked how it turned out. I loved that movie, and it was
I
my
do
pick
too.
for the M. Night Shyamalan jamboree that we had, and you might want to scroll back a few weeks to Mike's Signs, and that would be a nice double feature for you to check out as far as movies and on our podcast if you're so inclined.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I just want to shout out our week before that one, the Thanksgiving
Mhm,
horror film. It's
mhm.
kind of like a crazy time of year, like where you wouldn't anticipate a horror film, which kind of makes it even more special. But you check that out as well. But with that, I'm going to pull us back into our talking mode here, and there we go. All right, there we go. And I've been ML,
And I'm Mike, or not Mike, I'm Tom. I'm
and
having a identity crisis.
I am Tom, and you are Mike, and we are the first last nerdom. So,
Yep, yep. Play us out with some punk music, Mike.
all right, fuck around and find out.
Yeah.